Hey soccer fans, Nick here with the Feed the Fire podcast. It is bright and early on a Thursday, October 30th morning while I record this episode. I haven't even had my cup of coffee yet, but I have answered about half a dozen work emails and sent about a dozen messages out. But I wanted to take the moment here to give a little recap of the Chicago Fire's match against Philly, that first game in the first round at Subaru Park, to go over what happened in that game and how it really sets the tone for the Fire for the rest of the playoffs. I want to also remind everyone, if you want to engage with the show here, you can email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com, or connect with me on social media at glasshousesoccer. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you jump over on YouTube and subscribe to the Glasshouse Soccer channel. And if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, jump on over and make sure you subscribe to the show, the Feed the Fire podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Final housekeeping note, make sure you support our sponsor, Skira Icelandic Spring Water, available at your local 7-Eleven. With the Halloween holiday coming up this weekend, you may need to hydrate after a sugar hangover. So make sure you get out to 7-Eleven, get a few bottles of Skira, support our sponsor, support the show. All right, let's dive right into all the Chicago Fire content, and then at the end of the show, we'll recap where the playoffs stand at the moment. So as we know, the playoffs for the Fire actually began last week in their wild card match against Orlando City, and the Fire looked fantastic in that match, running Orlando off the pitch, outworking, outperforming, out-coaching, doing everything right in that game. No one had a bad game, and I would argue no one had a mediocre game either. Things were very different in this matchup against the Philadelphia Union, and they should have been. You went from hosting a wild card game against a team who has been struggling in their form as of late to now going to the stadium of the Supporters' Shield winner, the team that has been the most consistent throughout the season, team that had two players nominated for Defender of the Year, so you know scoring goals is going to be hard. And by the way, neither of them got it. It was Tristan Blackman of Vancouver who won that Defender of the Year award, just as a little sidebar there. So the Fire had to change their game plan for what they did. I think in the Orlando game, they went back to that 4-3-3 and attacked. But against this Philly side, they returned to their three center back system, clogged up the middle, slowed down the game, made it ugly, and for the vast majority of this match, it worked in the Fire's favor. Philadelphia could not break down the Fire. The Fire came out in what's listed on their website as a 3-4-3. You had three center backs, Jack Elliott in the middle, Sam Rogers on the left, and Waterman on the right, Chris Brady in goal, of course. You had your outside midfielders, your wing backs, Jonathan Dean on the right, Andrew Gutman on the left, and then you had your center mids, Jay Davila and Romanique Kwame. Your attackers, Kuipers up front, Bamba on the left, and this may have been a deciding moment in the match pre-game. Marin Haile Selassie gets the start on the right wing as Philip Zinkernagel picked up an abdominal injury in warm-up. So he was a scratch from that game due to that injury he picked up prior to kickoff. Now, a lot of people have been saying, it's just an ab injury, he'll be fine, he'll be back, by the next game, by this Saturday's matchup here in Chicago, maybe we can even just run him out for a short stint. The thing is, this is the do or die game. The Fire either win or go home, right? You can't have a player, even one of Zinkernagel's quality, going out on the pitch at less than 100%. I would love to see him get some time. I would love to see him influence this match, but I don't know how quickly an abdominal injury takes to fully heal. And from what people have been sharing online and from what I've been trying to read up, it can take at a minimum 1 to 2 weeks to fully heal. And if he pushes it and injures it further, it could be up to a month of recovery time, if not longer. So I would not expect Philip Zinkernagel to play in this match on Saturday, Game 2 against Philly. However, the Fire did enough to steal a win and just couldn't convert in the PK shootout. And you even heard Bradley Carnell, Philadelphia's coach, after the game say he essentially ripped on the Fire for playing such a terrible game on the field, by wasting time, by committing fouls, by doing all the things that I think he hinted at, doing all the things that bad teams do, or teams that can't beat them regularly, beat them going toe-to-toe, do just to play for penalties. Now, I don't think the Fire were playing for penalties. If you watch how that game unfolded and when the Fire took their chances to attack, they attacked, and they sent numbers forward. I don't think the Fire were playing for penalties. But, yeah, the Fire absolutely slowed this game down. They know Philly wanted to play quick, wanted to play off the counter, and again, Bradley Carnell coming over from his, was he at St. Louis before? But I know he's got ties to Red Bulls, so there's kind of like a little bit of that Red Bull soccer, that high pressing turnover, high intensity. So yeah, the Fire were going to slow it down, and the Fire were going to take their time on throw-ins and goal kicks and restarts and all of that. And you know what? If Carnell doesn't like it, don't direct derogatory comments towards the Chicago Fire. Direct them to the referee and the fourth official and the VAR official and timekeeper. Direct those comments to them and say, the referee needs to be on top of this to regulate the speed and the flow of the game and to be able to keep the game moving forward. Now, of course, he's not going to say that in a press conference because he's going to get fined. So, Carnell, either stand up for your team and make it known to the powers that be that this is your opinion and don't be afraid of the fine, or stop talking trash to a Fire team who, yeah, this is part of the game. Personally, I don't like seeing a lot of this kind of stuff, but you know, slowing down a throw-in, do it until the referee tells you not to. You know, both teams were doing it, especially Philly, when they were up 2 goals, were slowing things down as long as possible. And if you want to talk about these kind of gamesmanship things, Carnell needs to look no further than his own goalkeeper, Andre Blake, during the penalty shootout, and his own players, you know, keeping the ball longer, walking it away from the 18-yard box, putting the ball further away so the Fire players are going to have to run and go get the ball. And of course, when Chris Brady tries to step up and stop that sort of thing, it's the referee that gives Brady the talking to. So, yeah, I think Carnell, obviously, you don't want to argue with the result, but to me, this signals, number one, that he's worried about this series going 3 games, and number two, you know, you're doing a lot of talking for things that you do too. For a Philly team who's known to be right on the line of reckless challenges and hard fouls, like they're towing that line. You know, we've seen the taunting of the players in the crowd even a little bit in this game. So I think he needs to be a little bit more introspective before criticizing the Chicago Fire's style of play, tactics in this matchup. Anyway, that is how those some of my initial impressions. That was the starting lineup. We did see a number of subs come in later on in the game in order to pull back the 2 goals to draw the match. We saw Barlow, Pineda, Orahel, Gutierrez all come in. Unfortunately, one of the other plays that we do have to talk about is Orahel's red card. You know, it keeps him out for the next matchup against Philly, a player who they wanted to use. They probably want to use him at home in this game too. Give Jay a little bit of a rest. Give Kwame a little bit of a break. You know, those 2 guys had, I think, average games at best. If you're being kind to Kwame and Jay in this matchup, they had average games at best. So these were guys that Orahel was going to step in for in game 2, and now he has made himself unavailable by losing his head in this match. And the play, let me go find the feed here and see what minute it was, because it was late in the game after Orahel subs in. He ended up getting involved in a scuffle between, actually it was 90+4, so that's when he gets his red card. Ends up getting involved in a scuffle between Brian Gutierrez and Kai Wagner. Wagner is a guy who instigates without a doubt, and whether he's doing it within the confines of the rules of the game, you know, just trying to do a little bit of the dark arts, getting his opponent's head, that sort of thing, or whether he's, you know, towing that line or stepping outside of the line of the rules of the game. That's going to be a little bit more of a subjective discussion that I don't want to have on this show. But he definitely got under the skin of some of the Fire players, and the Fire players dished it back. Like, I give this team tons of credit for playing with a chip on the shoulder and a little bit of a chippier game here. And Gutierrez gets tackled by Wagner, hard foul, Referee calls it. Guti stands up, gets in the face of Wagner. Neither of these guys are backing down. They push each other a bit. But Guti handles himself. He doesn't lose his head like we've seen him in games early on in this season. He doesn't go in for revenge tackles later or anything like that. But Orahel, I'll give him credit, comes over to support his player. And if you watch the replay of all the scuffle that happened, there were like 9 Fire players that were there. And only Wagner and maybe one of his teammates. Like, the rest of Philly wanted nothing to do with this dust-up, but every Fire player just about came there to support Gutierrez, including Orahel, a guy who he's played with for years, guy who's come up with in the academy and the homegrown, and they've shared in each other's successes over these last several years with the first team. And Orahel comes running up not just to get in the face of Wagner, but to push him and almost run through him. Now, if you want to argue that it was not worthy of a straight red card, I'll hear the arguments, because I didn't see that at first either. Just looking at the physical contact, he gives him a hard shove and puts him on the ground. And I would like the referees to understand that this is a playoff match, and that red cards shouldn't be deciding playoff series. But if you watch the build-up to this from Orahel's perspective, he's coming from like the opposite side of the field. He's coming from 20, 30 yards away, sprinting across the field just to come in and confront Wagner and give and shove him and go through him. And so if you look at all of that, and if you look at the fact that it was already almost de-escalating at this time, the referee had gotten in there between Guti and Wagner, and then Orahel comes up and does this thing. I think the red card can be justified in that manner. Additionally, if you want to talk about, but the other thing too, not additionally, the other thing we got to talk about is how Orahel needs to understand the moment. Yeah, it's 90+4. You're at a draw. I don't know if he was trying to do any more time wasting or anything like that to take it to PKs, but you have to understand that you have now put yourself in a position to have the referee give you this red card. This is talked about all the time when defenders make last-ditch diving tackles and things of that nature in the box, and then they will maybe get part of the ball and part of the attacker, and the referee's going to have to make a decision on a PK. Similarly here, I think, Orahel put himself in a position where the referee is going to have to make a decision on yellow or red. I don't think there's any way he couldn't give him a yellow, and he ended up giving Gutierrez and Wagner yellow card as well. But the red was for violent conduct, and now he puts his team down. They played another 5 to 6 minutes after that. That could have been a deciding factor in that match, let alone the second match coming up this weekend. So that was another big play. As you guys know, we haven't gotten a soundbite from John Donovan, but as soon as that red card came out, he was texting me all night in the morning, called me at work. We were talking about it, and Donovan, as much as he loves John Donovan, not Landon Donovan, our guy, John Donovan, as much as he loves seeing the American players succeed here with the Chicago Fire, the homegrowns succeed, as much as he loves seeing how Philly has built up their academy, and he even said he was devastated for Quinn Sullivan's injury and that he didn't get to play much this season. John says, he goes, I would have had Orahel traded to Montreal by the next morning, because that's how mad it made John to see someone lose their head like that and then put their team at a disadvantage for the remainder of that match as well as for the next match. Because, again, too, going back to the tactics, and everyone talked about it, from the broadcasters to social media to the guys from Men in Red 97 who were doing a live stream from the Fire pitch, from the Second Star Tavern, which, by the way, guys, that looked like a lot of fun, and kudos to you for getting that set up. That was amazing, and kudos to all the fans who were there. They had Mike McGee at the match. They had him come on the show. A lot of fun stuff to be watching, a lot of good content there. But you have now put out a game plan for Game 1 where it's going to be a slog, and they wore down Philly. That's why the Fire got these 2 goals, in part because Philly was so tired by the end of this match, and they couldn't defend it. They couldn't keep it up. And then if you're going to go for penalties, you want your opposing players tired taking those PKs, because then the margin for error is much more slim. But And so then you look ahead that, okay, we need Orahel to start for us game 2. Now he's unavailable. And I know as a player, he's going to take it the hardest, especially because he cannot play in the next match. In what may be the Fire's last game of this season, most important game of the season, if not most important game in 7-8 years. So I know he's going to be hard on himself. But unfortunately, it's not enough to go back and rescind the red. A couple other things I wanted to talk about. A lot of people got down on Sam Rogers for his defensive errors that led to Philly's first goal. And I'm watching the replay, and it starts on the offensive side of the ball. We have 5 guys in attack. We have a 6th player sitting behind the ball in a midfield role, and then we have our remaining 3 defenders, 3 center backs back playing defense. And it's a good counterattack for the Fire. The ball is played across to Bamba, but Bamba tries to get a little too cute with it. It's a short ball. It's a little link-up play. He tries to... Actually, he doesn't try. He does. He dummies the ball through, thinking Kuipers would be there to get it. But Kuipers was making a forward run into the box. And if you're looking at it, you have 5 Philly players around Bamba, Kuipers, and Dean in this scenario. So why he would decide to dummy this ball through, I don't know. It was a mistake and a turnover. Now, here's the problem when this happens. You have Gutman, who is pushing high left. You have Selassie, who is pushing high right. Now it is all on the center backs in order to make sure that they can cover the counterattack from Philly. And you do have Kwame, who's dropped back a little bit. Unfortunately, the ball gets played right up the wing. And as Philly's making the counterattack, you see one of their attackers go right to the penalty spot. And there, you have Jack Elliott playing defense out on the left-hand side, marking the man with the ball. As that attacker makes the run into the box to the PK spot, you have both Waterman and Rogers tracking him and double-teaming him. And nobody accounts for Vasilev on the far post. You have Kwame, who's trying to make his recovery run, but his recovery run is going to that same attacker. So essentially, you have one Philadelphia attacker who has occupied 3 of the 5 Chicago defenders. This is a 3-on-5. You also have a Fire player dropping back slightly. Maybe he's in the play, maybe he's not in the play. I can't really make out who it is based on the replay. But again, you've got your 3 guys centrally all marking one attacker. And as Waterman picks up this attacker, Rogers needs to shift to the back post and cover Vasilev. Or Kwame needs to break off his recovery run to the center and go back and track Vasilev. If anything, it is wide open as Vasilev is, even if Kwame, who's further out, maybe wouldn't have gotten to the ball, but maybe just puts enough pressure on Vasilev in his mind where he's got to cut it back instead of take a quick shot. So we get across that is just a nice little chip. Rogers doesn't see Vasilev until the ball is over his head. And you're literally watching Sam Rogers look at the ball, and as it's chipped over him, he's watching it go up and around, and he turns around and goes, oh, look, there's the other attacker behind me, wide open. He doesn't try to backtrack. He doesn't try to turn and sprint. He's literally watching the ball go up and over his head. So what you saw was a breakdown in the Chicago Fire offense, because a goal is never one person's fault, usually. You saw a breakdown in the Chicago Fire's offense, a bad turnover up the pitch. You immediately saw the 2 the guys in the defensive midfield area just dropping back, and Philly did a great job of finding their outlet and putting the ball out on the wing. The Chicago Fire defense collapses on one player, does not account for the second player, Indiana Vasilev, and he gets the goal. And yeah, it does kind of just irk me a little bit that that's the guy that is going to put the Union up 1-0 against the Chicago Fire, that it's Indiana Vasilev. You have Brady, who does his best to recover from a central position in his goal to his far side and to just kind of get wide and get big. But when Vasilev is shooting from inside the 6-yard box or right at the corner of the 6-yard box, he's got a lot of space to work with. Brady has to cover that near post. That's his responsibility as the keeper. The ball's bouncing, so it was very possible that Vasilev rips one high, but he ends up going low, and the defense can't recover. Unfortunately, that is how they go ahead. They double their lead later on in that match on a goal. Let me see if I can pull up the replay here. It's Elliott in the 75th. But really the story we got to talk about then is the Fire's comeback. It's Bamba doing work in the box, fighting for a goal, in the 84th getting it. It's Jack Elliott not giving up on this game at all. And as a center back, he probably could have just dropped back as deep as he needed to on that set piece or on the ball being recycled over, but he stayed up in an attack-minded position, and he had an absolute gem, an absolute beauty of a shot from Blake's right corner of the 18 box, gets it through traffic, keeps it low and hard, and finds that far post back of the net. An absolute beauty of a comeback by the Chicago Fire. And I think this is why Bradley Carnell's worried about the Chicago Fire, because this isn't the same team where Philly went up 2, the Fire kind of dropped their shoulders, pushed to get one back, and then gave up 2 more. This isn't that 4-0 Philadelphia victory over Chicago Fire anymore. This is a Chicago Fire team who went toe-to-toe with them for long parts of this match. Again, it was 70 minutes before the Chicago Fire allowed Philly to get on the board, and then they allowed quickly again Elliott in the 75th, but they fought back. And if I'm this Fire team, I'm ready to turn it up to the next level. I am ready, and it's hard to do that when you're already playing at this level. When you've turned it up from regular season, because we saw the end of the regular season kind of whimper there with a couple draws. You turn it up for the win at Orlando. You turn it up even more against Philly. What's left? What's the next level? So when the Fire are playing their best, they still made these 2 mistakes that Philadelphia took advantage of, but they took them to the PKs. And now let's look at those PKs, because that brought up a lot of questions from people. A lot of questions about the Fire's penalty kick selection here. It starts off with Mikel Ura, who sets the tone for Philly because he's one of their better strikers. And it's Brady who goes right and blocks it and saves it, and it's amazing. And Brady gets everyone fired up. Then it's your captain, Jack Elliott, who comes in, puts his right-footed shot right where Blake was expecting it. So now we've opened up the penalty scoring with 2 saves. Now it's a best of 4. Maybe those odds should favor the Fire in this type of matchup. So now we are looking at. Hang on a second. What am I looking at? Okay, cool. The recap looked like it was backwards, and they were scoring it, the penalties made as actual goals, and it totally threw me off. But anyway, you have Ura and Elliott's PKs saved by Brady and Blake. Now we see Frankie Westfield come in. He converts his goal going opposite where Brady was. And by the way, Brady went right every time. Now, I don't know if that was just not being prepared or if that was being over-prepared and out thinking himself, but he went right every time. One Philly shot went that direction. A second one went down the middle, high down the middle, and the other 3 all went to his left. So not the best performance by Brady, but if you want to look at it bigger picture, you save one, hopefully your team can make the rest, right? Maybe you get lucky and there's a miss. But it's Westfield and Gutierrez in the second round. Both of them convert. Gutierrez looked so confident and stoic in that moment. I had all confidence it goes in. Next up, you have the goal scorer for Philadelphia, Elliott, and then Kuipers, the star for Chicago. Both of them convert their penalty kicks. So now it's getting a little nerve-wracking here. We're in the 4th round, and it's Ty Baribo, and Joel Waterman stepping up. Baribo converts his penalty, and it's Waterman who puts it off the crossbar. Has Blake beat, but puts it off the crossbar, just off center of the goal. And that would turn out to be the deciding factor, because at that point, then it's Jesus Bueno who steps up for Philly, converts, and then it's Philly with the 4-2 victory in PKs. Now, Kuipers, Gutierrez, I would absolutely have those guys taking penalties for me. No doubt about it. I can see the argument for Jack Elliott as the captain, as a goal scorer in the moment against Philly, his former team where he played 7 years and almost helped them win an MLS Cup. I guess I can make the argument for that. And I don't see how Elliott... I'm not watching Elliott in practice. I'm not watching the team in practice taking PKs. But I gotta wonder about the logic of having two center backs take penalty shootouts in the first round of a playoff game. In a first round playoff game. You know Gutierrez is good for it. You know Kuipers is good for it. Those two have been your penalty takers throughout the season. Would you have felt a little better, fans, if, say, Bamba or Selassie were to come in and take those PKs? Heck, even Pineda, maybe, as someone who has just been that solid MLS player for so many years here. Would you have wanted Gutman to take the penalty? Obviously, it's easy to question this after the result. Would you even wanted to have Orhel take a penalty? I don't know. I don't know his penalty history here. But yeah, if you want to look at these center backs, what were your other options? Than Elliott or Waterman. You even had Tom Barlow on the pitch. And yeah, the guy scored 3 goals in a single game this year, and that's all he scored. But he's still an MLS striker. Would you want him taking a PK over Joel Waterman, your center back defender, who has been full of emotion this game? Things to consider. If we are going to question anything about Berhalter this game, this should definitely be at the top of that list of questions. But the Fire will come back, and I gotta say, to put a neat bow on all of this discussion, the last week as a Fire fan has been one of the most fun weeks that I can remember since the team was winning trophies in the 90s and early 2000s. To see how they clinched a playoff spot against Miami, to see how they absolutely overwhelmed Orlando in the play-in game, and to see the fan response to it, to see how everyone was getting together and everyone locked in for this game in Philly. It's been absolutely amazing. I can only imagine what the atmosphere is going to be like at SeatGeek this weekend. Before we close, let me just give you a quick recap on what's been going on around the playoff picture in MLS. Looking ahead and looking ahead and back at the same time. Yes, we can do that. As the old Greek saying is, got eyes in the back of my head. That's what my mother and grandmother would tell me, thinking I couldn't get away with anything. So this Saturday, we see New York City hosting Charlotte. NYC took the first game. They're up 1-0. Chicago's hosting Philly. And again, Philly took that first game. Nashville hosts Miami. Miami is up 1-0 on that matchup. Portland hosts San Diego, and San Diego up 1-0 in that one. And Dallas hosting Vancouver. Vancouver up 1-0 in that one. That's your Saturday lineup. And by the way, all the higher-seeded teams won their games. No upsets in the first game of the first round. Now on Sunday, we see Columbus host Cincinnati. Cincinnati got the win in Game 1. And Austin hosts LAFC. Again, LAFC getting the win in Game 1 there. Seattle hosts Minnesota on Monday, November 3rd. Minnesota's up 1-0 in that series. And then the calendar jumps ahead to Friday, where we may need Game 3, if possible, for some of these matchups. Should the Fire win this weekend against Philly, they will return to Philadelphia on Saturday, November 8th, for their final matchup of the first round. So with that, I will leave you to the rest of your day. Fire fans, MLS fans, enjoy all the upcoming action. Have a fun Halloween weekend. Also, if you know any Greek people out there, October 28th was a major Greek holiday. It was called Oiki Day. Here's your history lesson for the day. Sorry, this is the dad in me right now. And I already got eye rolls from my kids when I was taking them to their Greek lessons to Greek school on Tuesday night, explaining all of this stuff to them. October 28th, it was a major holiday for all the Greeks of the world. It was the day the Greeks said no to the Axis powers in World War II. The Italian ambassador to Greece on October 28th, 1940, gave an ultimatum to the Greeks that you either allow Axis forces to occupy Greece or we will declare war on you. The Greek prime minister at the time said, then it is war. Very laconic, very short to the point. And if you study your history, I'll give you the crash course here. If you studied your history, the Greeks actually pushed back the Italian army to the point where they were having to retreat back across the Adriatic. The Greeks had taken all of what is now Albania from the Italians. The Germans had to send reinforcements down in order to secure their southern flank, to secure the Balkans, before they could launch an attack in Russia. And that delay and that expense of men and material meant that they had to invade Russia during the winter. And so many historians agree that the Greeks' defiance of the Italians and the Axis power was the turning point in World War II for the Allies. So there's your history lesson. So go out, hug a Greek, remember the holiday. But of course, for the purposes of this podcast, let's go fire.